Welcome everyone. I'm being joined today by the great Ian Coughlan, one-on-one professional MMA fighter, former Bellator fighter, preparing to fight on the rescheduled Clan Wars 40 card against Jeanderson Castro. Ian, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Donagh. I really appreciate it.
So this fight was cancelled at the last minute, just like I think it was Cage Legacy had the exact same issue just south of the border. Government seemed to be, putting MMA at the back of the queue and not allowing people to participate in this. I mean, as far as I consider it, elite sport.
I know, it's crazy, man. To be fair, though, I think the Cage Legacy people had it worse because I think they might have even made weight. So, yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
There's definitely an issue here where we've got a problem with communication from the top in terms of your basic life things down to things like elite sport, which I suppose in the grand scheme of things are not top of the priorities. But we need to at this point we need to have a system in place where these events can go on. It's not like Clan Wars or Cage Legacy or anyone is trying to bring a big crowd together. It's not like they're trying to do anything unsafe. They've been given guidelines, they followed them, and the government still tell them they can't do it.
Yeah, they keep changing the goalposts, and these guys are doing everything they can. You know what I mean? So I think it's really not fair, and it's a tough one because, as you said there, I understand some people might think like MMA or sports aren't number one priority, but I'm a little bit biased here. But the way I look at it is like 1 year in an athlete's career is like 10 years in everyone else's career, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I've had about a year and a half of my career now really hindered. I can't afford another year and a half to be lost.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. And an athlete's career, MMA is a little bit different to, your football or your Gaelic or whatever. There are MMA fighters that are in their 40s and 50s, but that's pretty rare. There's a specific shelf life in the sport, especially when it's brutal as this, and to just tell people, oh yeah, you're going to be on the shelf for a year and a half, 2 years, and not have an answer as to when you're going to be off the shelf, when you're going to be allowed to do things. And I know that you had a fight cancelled right around the time the pandemic happened as well, didn't you? In the new Problem MMA.
Yeah, Probellum. Yeah, same thing, same event. I thankfully didn't get. Those guys actually got cancelled the day before. I got cancelled maybe 2 weeks prior, just due to semantics we couldn't get over.
Yeah.
So, but it's a huge problem for people. And I think, like you said there, with no date, I actually think in terms of like everything to do with this virus, I think people would have been a lot more receptive if we were just given a date. Like once this date happens, it's all over. I know not the pandemic, but the certain kind of regulations. It's the fact that it never seems to end that I think is the most frustrating thing. Like if someone said to me, like, come September, everything will be open again, I'd be content. But it's the fact that we just don't know when it's going to end, and it keeps going and going.
And like you said,
pretty difficult to deal with.
The big issue is the changing of goalposts. We're not here to get political, so we'll move off of this topic in a minute. But it is frustrating because I had plans to go to Cage Legacy and to go to Clan Wars, and I was and everything gets done the right way, but they force these shows off. And what's actually really disappointing with the first fight that was cancelled with Kevin Mullen is I thought that was a really, really intriguing matchup. I thought that was because your last fight, which was nearly 2 years ago at this stage against Cucciniello. Yeah, that was one of those where I was sitting in the front row with your friend Sam Roberts, and we both kind of were agreeing that in terms of skill for skill as a martial artist, I think Costi would admit himself that there was one better man, but he had this incredible game plan that just worked to nullify what exactly it was that you were doing.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to me though, and the preparation, and that I let him. Like one of the biggest things. Like, and I understand a lot of people still thought I won the fight, but that doesn't really bother me. The big thing with me when it comes to that fight is, I think if I just did like 10% more activity, it would have been my decision easily.
Yeah.
there was so many times where he was like trying to stall on top and stuff, and if I just like Redzer was in my corner and he was constantly yelling out elbows and whatnot, and if I just was a bit more active, I think I would have taken either finished him, or it would have been a quite easy decision for me. So you live and you learn, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things about that fight that really, really bothered me was I was having major issues with my cardio in the lead up to it. And I think because of that, I was maybe to a degree, I was pacing myself during the fight. And as soon as the fight ended, I remember thinking like I could have easily done 2 more rounds. Easily.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Don't kind of leave, don't finish the fight and have anything left, right? Put it all out there.
You felt that there was something left in the cage, that you
100%.
hadn't. Yeah, look, that
100%.
that's difficult. And look, did you watch his next fight then against Kyron Gracie on the prelims of the next Bellator? Because that must have made you feel a bit better that Gracie wasn't able to do anything off his back against him.
Yeah, I think I did a lot better than Kyron Gracie did,
Definitely.
to be honest with you. And I think personally, to be honest, without sounding too arrogant, I think people might see certain names and certain, let's say, competitive jiu-jitsu accomplishments, but I feel like my jiu-jitsu for MMA is up there with the absolute best of them. I really think that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that there were a lot of points where, yeah, in that last fight with Kyron Gracie, it didn't look like at any point he was under a great deal of concern. Whereas with you, there were definitely points where we
Yeah.
saw, I think in the second round you'd a good. I can't remember what exactly it was. Maybe it was
Armbar.
yeah, armbar. That's what it was. I thought it
Armbar.
was maybe a triangle off your back, and I thought, he's got it here, but.
Yeah.
Look, you live and you learn, and
But
also
it's one of those fights where, yeah, the second round I had a couple of close moments. The third round he was basically surviving submission attempt after submission attempt. But for me, like, even though like sometimes I for a while after the fight I was very upset with the decision and how I did, but I look around now, like, so much was learned. Like, before that fight I basically did no strength and conditioning, and to me I think that was the big difference. I think anyone, and I'm not in an arrogant way, there was no doubt I'm the more skillful guy than he was, but there was
yeah,
just certain situations where I'd have him in submissions and I just wasn't quite strong enough to finish them, or certain times where I was, like I said, I was maybe holding back a little bit out of fear of not having the gas tank. That's probably one of the biggest things I took from that. I'm a lot stronger now than I was, and a lot fitter as well. So they're two, and more skillful.
So Clan Wars 40 goes down on a date that is to be determined. Have you been told a general area, or are you guys kind of running blind on this due to what's happening in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, so what I was told is that there should be an update on kind of general Northern Ireland regulations today.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of hoping that by the end of the week we have a date for Clan Wars. The thing I've been told is most likely the first or second week of May.
Yeah, and look, we'll see if that happens. We'll see if they allow that.
I know, basically, I've been convincing myself the past, I don't know how long, that it's definitely happening on that date, because I think it's very easy to lose focus if you don't.
No, absolutely.
So I'm just telling myself it's in the first week of May.
And Jeanderson Castro, the both of you are guys with what I would say are deceptive records. I think undoubtedly this is a fight that maybe the fans who are very excited about the Chad Riley fight with Josh Green, they're maybe not looking at this as one of the prime fights of the night. But I think that in terms of the skills on show, we're probably looking at the two best fighters in the card, are we?
That's what I'm saying. With me, to be honest with you, I think you could put me in any organization right now, and I'm a very competitive guy, at minimum. Like, I think it's crazy. Like a lot of this stuff is on what you post on social media and what you say. This is a fight where you have a guy like Jeanderson, one of the best strikers in the country, versus me, the best grappler in the country. Like, how is that not appealing to people?
Yeah. Well, look, I would hope that that the hype begins to build as a date gets announced, and as I'm sure, like, he's someone who, when it comes closer to the fight and you're seeing each other around the fighter, like, the hotel that the event is on at and stuff, I'm sure he'll be well able to get into any sort of like a verbal back and forth and do all that fun stuff. But he's been in there with some really good guys. I mean, he's got 4 losses, but you look at Zhao Cheng, he fought and won. Pedro Carvalho just fought for the Bellator title. Sam Slater's another, one of the best fighters
Good fighter.
in this country. He's a really, really tough test, and I think it's a great matchup for where both of you are in your careers.
Yeah, like to be honest with you, I knew of him before the fight, and then once my coach Ben told me about the fight, I looked at him for like 2 seconds. I'm actually trying a different approach this fight, where I'm kind of not thinking about my opponent too much, which can
Okay.
be sometimes difficult to do. But so far, it's been pretty good. I've just been focusing on me, and to be honest with you, I like it, and I think even though like you might think the fight's going to be competitive, I don't think it's going to be competitive. I
All
I think the truth is, Donagh, you or anyone who's watched my fights hasn't seen anything about what I can do.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Even just from like a striking point of view, let's say that's the obvious one. People say my striking, whatever like that. Come see me spar and see if I can strike. Since my last fight, my jiu-jitsu has gotten 10 times better. My strength and conditioning has gotten a lot better. This more than anything has gotten a lot better.
hmm
So I think you're going to see a different class, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what Sam has said to me, because he was at a lot of your amateur fights. This is Sam Roberts, for people watching the Irish Mirror reporter, Sam Roberts. He is a good friend of yours, and he was at a couple of your amateur fights, and he said that striking wise, people are going to be surprised when they get a chance to see you on the
Yeah,
feet at the pro level.
yeah. Even people like who hasn't seen me in a while or whatever, they see me hitting pads and their eyes are on the floor.
hmm
Um, even Bender, like the first time we sparred, he was like, "Oh, okay." A lot different than he thought. I think with me for the fights, a lot of people in MMA, and there's no right or wrong, but a lot of people MMA might be a bit of a hobby to them or
Yeah.
whatever. For me, like I am all fucking in, like it's my whole life. So when I go out there, I put so much pressure on myself that I
hmm
think it's really, really stifled me. And I actually almost feel like having a loss on my record almost helps in that sense. It's like, okay, that always gone. That pressure is gone. Um, and I'm really looking forward to this next fight. Like really looking forward to it. People are gonna see something, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, so your preparation is obviously different than for the last one. Of course, you've moved for reasons that I would imagine are not to do with mixed martial arts necessarily 100%. But you were with Team Rhino training with, like you said, the likes of Paul Redmond, Andy Ryan, some of the top people in the country. But talk to me about the people you're training with now in Galway. Is that correct, or Mayo?
Yeah, well, I live in Mayo, but I travel to
Yeah.
Galway for
Okay.
training every day. And I have to say, it's been so good. It's really good. Me and Andreas Binder, like me and Cullum, me and a lot of the guys, Ryan, we've developed really good relationships. Like right off the bat, I don't know how this works. I'm like sometimes I'm not the most social guy. People like we just clicked like right away and
Yeah.
became very friendly. Like I've known Andreas for a long time. Kind of I'd see him here and there at judo comps and stuff. Me and Ben get on really well. The training really suits me in that it's an intensity I like where it's kind of hard, but like we're not kind of injuring each other and type of thing. I'm
hmm
learning new stuff. I'm really happy. Like, and I think the pandemic as well really helped that because sometimes you need to, you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, I remember I was doing a little bit. I was teaching my younger brother a bit of jiu-jitsu during the first lockdown, and he said to me like, are you missing training and stuff? And I told him honestly, not really, because like for so many years I've had such a rigid schedule
Yeah.
that maybe I was a bit mentally burned out. So having a bit of a pandemic, a little bit of a break, now being back in training, really really enjoying it, and it's going really well. I like the atmosphere in Sheldon. It's nice people.
You mentioned Andrew Spinder. I mean, he's also on the card. Is that correct, or is he on?
He's on the card. I think he's
Yeah,
actually a main event. He's fighting Marcin Zambella.
yeah. And so he's another one of these guys who your average fan in the country probably isn't aware of, but who it's safe to say is up there with yourself as one of the best fighters in Ireland and maybe in this part of Europe.
well, that's the thing. Like sometimes, and I have this tough balance on a daily basis about, pushing yourself on social media, because in some senses I understand it, but in other senses you want to be judged on your skill, right? And
Hmm.
like Ian Gary, and I'm not hating on Ian. I've known Ian for years with judo. He's a lovely lad, but
Yeah.
like Andreas beat Ian.
Yeah.
I mean, amateur, let's be fair, but he did beat him. You know what I mean?
It'd be a
And
cracking
like,
fight at pro. I'd love to see it now with the developments that Ian's made to his game.
I'd love to see it as well. So yeah, so me and Andreas, we train together every day. We train really well together as well. In that, like, I have certain things I help him with, and he's been helping me with some things, especially like cage work and things like this.
Hmm.
So I think we bounce off each other really well. But and again, it's that way where we push each other, but no one's getting no one's getting injured and no one's getting hurt. Like, it doesn't go too intense, you know.
So you fight on Clan Wars 40. Ideally, that's the first week of May. And then is the plan to kind of get in touch with promoters? I know that in the UK they're going to be opening up a whole lot quicker than they are here. Is the plan to try to get in touch with people over in the UK, or what's the ideal for you going forward this year, assuming that that event happens as is planned early May?
To be honest with you, like, I feel like if I go out there and fight like I should fight, I think people will be coming to me.
Right.
Right? I don't have a manager or anything like this. Um, I don't have many followers on Instagram. I contacted one English show and they didn't seem interested. But I feel like if I fight the way I can fight, people will contact me. My ideal scenario is, as you know, you said I've moved to Mayo recently. It's we're me and the family, we're still getting settled here. So I think after this fight on Clan Wars, maybe I'll give myself like a month to 2 months of just getting home stuff sorted. Like, I still don't have a new job here or anything like this yet.
Right.
So, but then after that, after this Clan Wars fight, I would definitely like to have 2 fights by the end of the year. As far as what shows are concerned, I guess it depends how you do it. Do you fight on smaller shows, build a record? Like, I'd love if a Cage Warriors or a Brave gave me a call, and I know I can compete at that level.
Yeah.
So maybe after the fight, if I get in contact with a management company and we sit down, we see the plan. But I definitely want to be active. I'd love at least 3 fights this year, at least 3.
That would be fantastic. I would love it if there were 3 fights for you to have. That would be ideal because, we've had a real issue here like, prior to the pandemic we were having some issues. I know that there were big shows coming here all the time. Cage Warriors were here fairly frequently in Belfast and Cork and Dublin, and Bellator, of course, did those two big shows, one of which you were on. Did you find the big show experience? Did you find that sort of? I know that we talked beforehand, and your mind was in the game, but this is the first time that you were on, in this massive arena with the media day beforehand and all of this stuff. Did you find that it was a little bit intimidating, that experience of being on a big show like
To a
Bellator?
slight degree, is in that maybe I didn't fully believe in myself. I believe I did an interview with you beforehand, and you asked me
Yeah.
what my aspirations were, and I just kind of gave a bluff answer. Like I said, I have big aspirations, because I didn't quite
Yeah.
have the confidence in myself to say what I what I
I
really felt.
remember what you said was, I just want to be really good. It didn't sound, but now
Yeah,
now that we're, months or years removed, I can say that it didn't sound like the most convincing, but it
yeah,
was. I got the general gist of what you were saying, which was that
yeah,
I'm not really concerned with too much else other than being really good at mixed martial arts.
yeah. But what I think in hindsight, what I think happened was, I feel like I maybe allowed other people's lack of belief in me to affect me. But the way I look right now is, I don't need anyone else to believe in me, because I
Hmm.
believe in me. The way I look at that Bellator event is, without saying too much, and I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, I had a very tough camp for that fight. Um,
Right.
some people might not know, I had in the months prior to the camp start, and I had some really, really tragedies going in my personal life.
Hmm.
And during the camp, I had injury after injury after injury. So the way I look at it now in hindsight is, Konstantin Gonzariev fought, and I can honestly say this, the worst Ian. And even in that, it was a very close decision. After that, in December, I went to City Kickboxing in New Zealand, and I trained with those guys. So between those two experiences, I really looked at myself and I stopped doubting myself the same way. And I really realized that if I prepare properly and train properly, like, I know I can compete at that level. So even on a loss, it actually boosted my confidence.
I didn't know that you went to City Kickboxing. Who were you training with out there?
I did a little bit with Dan Hooker, but I was just I did a little wall round with him. A guy called Mike Blood Diamond. I did rounds with him. I did did 3 days there. My wife's family lives there, so I went there for a holiday, and of course I'll always bring the gloves with me and do a bit of training. So so I popped in a bit. It was an interesting experience.
This is the life of a professional who isn't on the big shows frequently, is that you're always kind of ready. You're always sort of in a position where if someone were to call you and say, look, we've got this opportunity or that opportunity, do you have some gloves in 2 weeks time or in 10 days time? That's kind of how it works. I think people assume that a professional fighter is just often, when they hear the word camp, they think of like Israel Adesanya and Conor McGregor and having the best coaches in the world and having someone make their meals for them and all this stuff. But at the level that you are at the moment, this is not necessarily how it goes.
Yeah, that's a big thing now. We'd all love to have a regular show and they tell you in advance what dates, but I'm pretty much now, I've contented myself with the fact that I'm gonna have to be close to ready 52 weeks in a year, because what I don't want is an opportunity to potentially come along on a Brave or a Cage Warriors or the UFC down the line and not be ready. So I'm always going to have myself on that precipice of, I'm 2 weeks away from making weight, or that's a goal of mine as well, to be like 1 week away from making weight. I think is a nice goal. So little things like this, always being close enough.
And right now, you're fighting at welterweight in your next fight, is that correct?
Yeah.
And right now you are in or around what weight in pounds, if you could, just because I know that welterweight is very easily like 170. I'm not sure on the kilos.
Oof. If I told you that, done, I'd have to kill you, man. I don't know.
No, look, if someone ever asked me that question, I of course would give the exact same answer.
No,
but you know that.
I think I'm trying to do the conversion in my head. I think I'm like 191 in pounds, because I'm like 87 kilos. With the lockdown, I did some eating, and I got myself when I went in to get my blood test and all that stuff for this fight, they put me on a scale, and I was 93 kilos of fucking fat, right? But then I cleaned it up, and I have naturally quite a fast metabolism. Like, I was eating like crap to be that size. So once I cleaned her up, I actually almost lost too much weight, and I was like, so 93 kilos is 205 pounds. Yeah. And I ended up losing so much weight, I was like 185. So I've got myself back to that 190 kind of mark, which I think is a good way to be at.
Yeah, that's about right, because you don't want to be, walking around too close to the fight weight either, because people who you're fighting are going to be cutting large amounts, and you could be fighting people who are a whole lot bigger.
Again, these are just lessons you learn along the way. My last fight, I walked in the cage 80 kilos.
Right.
Which would be, again, in pounds, maybe 177, something like this.
Not even, probably in the region of 170, even closer than that.
Way too small. Sometimes they bring a scale after weigh-ins to check if someone's cutting way too much weight. Dan Mergliotta, the referee, he came in there with a commission guy, and they put me on the scale, and I was 81 kilos, so about 178, 179, with my jackets, jeans, boots on. And he was like, oh shit, So you have to get that balance right. Last one, I said I didn't want to cut weight, but you have to cut some weight. It can't be too big, it can't be too small. There's a fine balance, and I feel like this kind of 190 is a nice balance where, like, if I needed to, I could make weight in a week, but I'm not going to walk in the cage too small. That's actually a shout out to Ryan Hanley. He's been helping me with some weight cuts type stuff. This guy, he knows his stuff amazing when it comes to nutrition and things like this.
You said Ryan Hanley, Hanley, is that right?
Yeah, he's a guy
Yeah,
from Shaolin. He's actually moving to Dublin now, come July or August, whatever. But he's done a few weight cuts, but he's like an encyclopedia when it comes
yeah,
to weight cutting and things like this. A bit like Redzer is in Rhino, just knows it inside and out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's yeah, Redzer really is. What do you think? Do you think he's going to retire, or is he going to stick around?
Oh, I couldn't honestly tell you. Like, it's been with the lockdown with everything. I've probably said two words to him the past like year or so.
Yeah.
He did tell me when I first joined there that he knew in his head he was coming towards the later part of his career.
Hmm.
Um, so if he still fights, he probably maybe another year or so. I honestly
Yeah.
couldn't say.
Actually, I asked that question, and I think he has a fight announcement coming in the next few days.
Oh,
But I know that
oh,
he's not with Bellator anymore.
okay, I didn't notice.
Yeah, no, he look, they had a lot of European shows planned, as you know. You probably would have been in the running to get another call if if they weren't in a situation where they have to base all of their shows in this one place, thousands
Yeah,
of kilometers away. But you know, the life of a pro is interesting. Of a pro at this level where you're starting out. Obviously, like you say, everything in your life is MMA. You're very dedicated. From what I've seen, you're a fantastic fighter. I know that your judo is fantastic as well. That's something people should be excited to see. But how do you find that balance? Because you're not a social media guy. You're not a guy who pushes yourself. You're not a guy who goes around all the local places and does the ticket selling thing as well as some people. Uh, how are you going to strike that balance going forward in your career?
do you mean between just being myself and self promotion? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't really tell you. I think the biggest thing would be I'm not the kind of guy to put on a fake persona
Hmm.
or be that kind of guy. So that'll never happen. But I do think that maybe if I look back, I did turn down interviews. So
Right.
even if I'm not acting the idiot or being a fake person, I don't need to do that per se. But just not saying no to interviews.
Hmm.
Yeah. To be honest with you, like I'm still honestly hashing that one out because I think I'm actually naturally um a bit more of a recluse as a not crazy, but I'm quite private in general. So I am gonna have to figure it out, and I think I'm just gonna have to start with not turning interviews down. I think
Yeah.
that'll be a start, right? And when I do them, hopefully still keep it like tasteful,
No, of
because I
course,
think
yeah,
some people, yeah, no,
and
I
you,
think some people sell their souls for followers, um,
yeah,
and
I
the way
have
no,
heard
but
of
the way
that.
yeah, but the way I look at it is it's with social media, like these things are out there forever. And like I have two stepsons who look up to me and I can't be out here talking and behaving in a certain way and for them to see it on Instagram, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think about things like this, because you have to conduct yourself in a decent way.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and I think you do, but I think that you're right. I found the first time we spoke at that Team Rhino Media Day. By the way, very funny that Bellator had an official media day, and I think Redzer was the only one invited from the Rhino team. Then, so Andy had to take it upon himself to put on
Yeah.
his own event. That was quite funny to me. But I thought that you're very well spoken. You're. It's not like you're not able to big yourself up. It's not like you're not able to talk about where in the fight you're going to beat your opponent. It's just that yeah, maybe like you said, you've got a quieter personality, but I think yeah, you should be stepping forward a little bit more and making making not making a show of yourself, but definitely you know forcing people to notice that Ian Coughlan is in my opinion on his day one of the best fighters in the country.
I appreciate that. And I am gonna do that. I think for a long time I had this romanticized view of people just looking at my skills and that being enough to get
Yeah.
notoriety. But I think that is not the way it's gonna be. So I've mentally kind of accepted that. So now it's doing things like this, interviews like this, and
Hmm.
that'll be the next step.
No, of course, and I thank you for coming on. So let's talk again about your opponent. You said you haven't really focused on him on Jeanderson Castro, but you've watched him. Obviously, he hasn't been he's been relatively inactive as well. He's been out for in the region of, it'll be 3 years by the time he fights. What do you see in his game as things from what you have seen that you're going to beat him at?
Most things, to be honest with you. I think I'm the cleaner striker. He's got a good Dutch kickboxing style. He comes forward, a lot of loop and hooks, heavy low kicks. He's got good power. He's got a nice spinning kick. But I think I can handle that pretty well. I know I can take him down. I mean, the reality is that it's a 15-minute fight. I'll get you down at some point, and then the biggest kind of distinguishing factor in the fight is once we're on the floor, Donagh, you're gonna see a complete other level. And I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way. I'm sure he's training hard with his jiu-jitsu, but I honestly think you'd have to look very hard to find 10 people whose ground game is as good as mine in MMA. I really think that, like, it's not just I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu and stuff, but it's not just that. It's my jiu-jitsu is literally from day one, also my judo as well, from day one, it's been designed for MMA. And I feel like that's where I excel. And I feel like you'd be hard pressed to find people better than me. So the way I look at it is, I fancy myself on the feet with him, but I'm going to look to take it down. I know I can take him down. And once I do, it's going to be a whole other ball game. I think he would have never experienced the ground game like I have when we fight. I can honestly say that. I don't think he would have been in there with anyone with the MMA ground game that I have.
No, of course, and like we said, when on paper you look at his record, his last fight lost on the ground, lost to Pedro Carvalho on the ground. He's not he's a good fighter. He's definitely underrated, I would say, but he's not the kind of guy who is going to be down there and we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see the greatest competitive role when you guys are on the ground.
But the thing is, with me, you can go to the UFC and you can look at the top 15, top 20. Name who there would be on the floor with me if I get them down. Gilbert Burns, Damian Maia, fair enough. But you look at all these organizations, my ground game, and again, the reason I've been hesitant to say it is because I'm more of a show me kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll all become clear after the fight when you see my ground game. And that's the thing people don't understand is in the past year and a half, 2 years that I've fought, my ground game, people always knew me for my ground game because it's quite good. It is on a whole other level than what it was before. I mean, not even in the same ballpark. I was a brown belt in my last fight. Since then, I got my black belt from Andy Ryan. And since then, I became a good black belt and a very good MMA black belt. So for me, I just think I look at these guys and I just don't get it wrong. Like I have areas that could be better as well. I don't mean like that, but specifically on the ground, I honestly I struggle to find someone who I wouldn't handle on the ground. The battle is getting it there, of course. But once we're there, it's a whole other ball game. It's a whole other ball game with my ground game.
And what happens now if someone gets you in a position like Costi did, where he's, he's a big, strong guy. He's on top of you. He's not necessarily looking to advance position. He's not necessarily looking to finish the fight in any sort of a way. What happens then if someone is in that dominant position? I mean, it's probably not going to be Jeanderson, but at some point in your career, when someone is back in that position that you were in for those 3 rounds, how do you mitigate that going forward?
They get submitted. I could go into the details if you want. So basically what happened was, let's say my last fight and my career prior to that, I had a good ground game, but essentially I had option 1. And then if option 1 failed, that was it. The problem is at this level now, option 1 isn't enough. I don't know if this is making sense to you, but
no, of course.
Now when I go for, just an example, when I go for armbar and he defends an armbar, he's opening up X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. I'm also physically so much stronger now that it's not going to be a case like the last fight with Constantine, where I'd have him in a submission, but I didn't have that strength to finish it. Because as you saw in the fight, I had him in quite a lot of
Yeah.
very close submissions. But I do feel like some technical nuances, but more so physical strength. Like I didn't lift a weight for the whole camp. That's just the truth.
Right.
I didn't lift a weight, and at this level, that's just not going to cut it. But I also feel like I do a lot more damage on bottom now. I'm also harder to take down now. And even though I wouldn't put myself down as, like, I pride myself on my guard. That's something I
Yeah.
take a lot of pride in. But now the difference is, let's say when the Costi fight, he didn't have to exert energy to get me down.
Okay.
So if we fought again, perhaps he'd still get me down, but I promise you he'd be a lot more tired when he did get me down. And then when the submissions are happening and he defends one, Ian has 2, 3, and 4.
It did seem though that you were almost, if I could be a little bit critical, of course, as a big fat guy who's never fought before, the armchair a quarterback, as they say in football. It seemed like you were maybe a little bit too comfortable on your back. Like you were almost too confident in that ability that, oh yeah, well at some point I'm going to get him, because he's obviously not posing a great deal of difficulty to me in terms of the jiu-jitsu, but it means that when it goes to a judge's scorecard, a judge is looking at that and thinking, okay, well, the guy who was on top for 4 minutes has won the round.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think, let's say, a big difference in my game now would be if you have watched my amateur fights and that fight with Costi, for example, in the second round of that fight, I pull guard. People don't quite realize that. If you watch the fight, he took me down once. The second round, I pull guard. The third round, I pull the guillotine. So now it's more a case of I still like being on my back and I still put a lot of time into that, but I'm not looking for that position anymore. So I think that inherently will make it kind of less frequent. But also now when I'm on my back, I will incorporate trying to stand up if the opportunity is there. But I really feel like when I'm on my back, I'm doing more damage than the guy on top is doing, especially now since that last fight, because in the last fight, there just wasn't enough activity. So I agree with what you're saying, but I still, like, a big thing I'm coming from is I feel like jiu-jitsu has almost gone down in people's estimation, and I really want to be the kind of guy to almost, like, not bring it back, but to really show how effective jiu-jitsu can be,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's fun because I'm thinking the way you're talking, it would, because what we haven't really mentioned is that you're also, very, very good on the feet as well. You're a great striker, and I'm almost thinking that you would almost be disappointed if you went out there and stood for 2 minutes and knocked him down and finished him with ground and pound. I feel like that would be not what you are looking for. You want to showcase your ability on the deck.
I do, but it's I've actually gone back and forth on that. Like, how much would I like to strike and how much would I like to grapple? The way I'm kind of looking at it is, if you can stop my takedowns, we'll have a kickboxing match.
Yeah.
But if you can't, I'm gonna go to the floor with you. That's how I kind of look at it. I will be prepared for the day when someone can stop it going to the floor. But I'm still aiming for the takedown.
So,
but I think that's a big difference as well, is that because I've spent so much time on my strike in the past, I would say 2 years, I've really put a lot of time into it. I'm not as frantically needing the takedown as, like, let's say in my amateur debut, I had no striking, and then I worked a bit more on it, but I was like, I need to get the takedown. Now it's more, I want the takedown, but it's not like life or death, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I completely understand. So look, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know that we're coming up on 11 p.m. in the evening over here. So in summation, I suppose, what are people going to see whenever this fight does happen? Clan Wars 40, it's going to be in Belfast. There's going to be a pay-per-view link that we're going to have down below on the YouTube video here, and we're going to have it on our social media pages as well. That's how people can watch this fight. What are the people who are going to watch it going to see?
What I wrote on my Instagram when the first fight, the fight first got announced, is I said you're going to see a world class performance, and that's what I'm promising. I think people are going to watch this fight and they're going to go, "Whoa, how come this guy's not on Bellator, Brave, etc., etc."
Yeah.
That's what I feel, and I think that'll be really highlighted once we get to the floor. You're going to see a guy who people are going to really see. Personally, I'm really looking for a composed performance. Even if that means it goes to the second round, hypothetically. I don't think it will, but if it did, a really composed performance, setting up my striking, and then using that to set up my takedowns on the floor, taking my time a bit more, but not, if I'm on my back, not being too lethargic. But I think I'm hoping for a world class performance. And this is something I've been kind of keeping internally for a while now. I think I'm a very elite fighter, and I don't think people know how good I am. I really don't. I don't think some people who train with me a lot will know, but I think most people don't actually know how good I am, and I really want to showcase that. I see a lot of guys on a lot of big shows, and I know for a fact I could beat them. After this fight, people will start taking a bit more credence to what I said there. Because I think right now they look at a guy who's 1-1. Yeah, okay, say what you want to say. Let's see after the fight. People will change their tune. A lot of people forget about me, Donagh. And I don't really want to go on a rant, but a lot of people forget about me. Like, shows don't want to sign me. Management companies don't want to sign me. I'm a third degree black belt in judo. I'm a very, very high level black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I was 5-1 as an amateur. 1 controversial decision, 5 first round finishes. I'm 1-1 as a pro. Again, my loss, very controversial decision. My pro debut, I beat Magic Gorinsky, first round submission. Yeah. He's often Brave, knocking people dead.
Yeah.
He's knocking people dead, but no one remembers that. He knocked, no disrespect to Cian Cowley, but he knocked Cian Cowley out cold. I submitted him in a minute and a half, and I took that fight on 2.5 weeks' notice and at middleweight. A lot of people forget about me, Donagh, and I think they'll soon find out. I really do. This is something I've been holding in for a while, but I feel like I'm perpetually overlooked. I really do. People will soon find out.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to leave it. I probably didn't mention your fight with Magic enough. I mean, that's a fight that the more he fights, the more impressive that win gets.
It ages well, doesn't it? It ages very well. But again, I'm not trying to say a bad word about Magic. I don't think what I'm about to say now. After I beat him, I had someone suggest to me that he was a low-level fighter. He was this, he was that. I just made him look that way. No disrespect to the guy. I made him look that way. Because once we got grappling, you could see the class difference. And imagine me versus that Ian. The Ian now would destroy that Ian. Just to put that in perspective. I've had a 1.5 years of lockdown, and in that time, I've gained skills, I've gained athleticism, and I've really managed to analyze my game, because that was always a big issue with me. In a Muay Thai class, I'd be good. In a judo class, I'd be good. In a jiu-jitsu class, I'd be good. But I've really fused into an MMA fighter now. And people will see.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And I thank you very much for coming on. And I hope that people hear this and tune in on the date that will be announced very shortly.
And if anyone can, sorry for cutting you off, Donagh, if people can please follow me on Instagram, Ian Coughlan MMA. That apparently has a lot of weight these days. So if people could please follow me as well, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ian Coughlan MMA. We'll put another big shout on our MMA Island page for that, and I'll do some stuff on my own stuff. But thank you very much for coming on, and I look forward to seeing the fight. Hopefully I'll be there in person. I talked to them about it. Maybe they'll let me in this time.
Great. Thanks so much, man. See you soon.
Brilliant.